She locked me in her gilded cage. I think she expected me to scream, to beg her to let me go. Instead, I decided to lean into it, enjoy the amenities. I even wrote up a shopping list for her. First item, an RTX 5090 graphics card. Now she was the one who was stumped. My current situation was, let's say, complicated. Technically, I was kidnapped, but my prison was a sprawling multi-million-dollar penthouse with a panoramic view of the Manhattan skyline. But then again, I definitely couldn't leave. The door was some high-tech fortress lock that required a fingerprint and a retinal scan. The windows were supposedly bulletproof. I tested that theory with a designer chair. The chair was now a pile of splinters. The window didn't have scratch. The person who locked me up was Kate Vance, my boss, a woman so beautiful it was almost unnatural, but whose mental state was clearly operating on a different wavelength from the rest of humanity. Right now, she was standing in front of me, dressed in a sharply tailored black power suit, her eyes like chips of ice. They were cold, with a hook in them, the kind that looked like it wanted to pin you to a wall and watch you squirm. "Leo Carter," she said, her voice low and final. "From now on, you're mine. Without my permission, you're not going anywhere." She was probably anticipating fear, rage, or at the very least, a normal human struggle. But I just yawned, rubbing the hand I'd numbed by smashing that chair. "Okay, boss. So, is this a salary position? Does it come with health insurance? Are we classifying this as hazardous duty? Because I feel like there should be a bonus for that." The ice chips in Kate's stunning eyes cracked just a little. She probably thought she'd misheard me. "What did you just say?" I walked over to the Italian leather sofa that looked like it cost more than my car, plopped down, and gave it a little bounce. "Nice suspension." I said, "I accept this. Full-time residential position. But we need to talk about the compensation package. Forced labor is illegal, even if you're forcing it." I gestured around the opulent room. The work environment is acceptable, but employee benefits need to keep pace. A muscle in Kate's jaw twitched. She had probably prepared 18 different strategies for dealing with my defiance, my tears, even my screaming curses at her. The one thing she hadn't prepared for was an impromptu HR negotiation. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as she tried to reclaim her Ice Queen in control vibe. "Don't play games with me, Leo. In here, I make the rules. Your world is this apartment. Your food will be delivered on schedule. All you have to do is be a good boy and wait for me to visit." I nodded, showing my complete understanding. I reached for my phone. Oh, right, she'd already confiscated it. I scanned the room and saw a notepad and a pen that looked suspiciously like a Mont Blanc on the coffee table. I grabbed them and started scribbling. Kate watched me, her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" I handed her the piece of paper. "My list of basic requirements, boss. Since this is a long-term sponsorship. No, wait, a long-term imprisonment. My quality of life can't suffer." Kate took the list and glanced down. Her brow went from a slight furrow to a deep crease to a full-on knot. She started reading my demands out loud, unconsciously. A top-spec gaming PC with an RTX 5090 graphics card, minimum 64 gigs of RAM, an 8 terabyte solid-state drive, and a 4K monitor. The latest model gaming smartphone, maxed out. Weekly snack list. Original flavor potato chips, Coke Zero, dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao. She couldn't continue. She looked up, her expression suggesting she was evaluating me for a psychiatric hold. "Leo, are you out of your mind? What do you think this is? A resort?" I looked at her with complete seriousness. "Boss, this is unlawful confinement. I can't escape, I get it. I've accepted my fate. But you can't deprive me of my right to the pursuit of happiness, can you? It's in the Declaration of Independence. Otherwise, I might get depressed, start running into walls. Then you'd have to hire a therapist for me. And that's just another expense. This is easier. Let me play my games. I'll be quiet, my carbon footprint will be low, and it's a great model for your sustainable imprisonment initiative." Kate's knuckles were white as she gripped the list. She was probably trying to figure out if this was some incredibly convoluted form of resistance, or if I had genuinely given in. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Then she laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a cold, sharp, "You've got to be kidding me" kind of laugh. "Fine. Just fine. Leo Carter, you're more interesting than I thought. You want a gaming rig with a 5090? Done. I'll buy it for you. I'm curious to see what kind of game you think you're playing. She crumpled the list in her fist, turned, and her heels clicked against the marble floor with sharp finality. At the door, she stopped without looking back. Don't test my patience. The door slid open and then shut without a sound. The click of the lock was almost silent, but it was there. I let out a long breath and sank back into the ridiculously soft couch, staring up at the crystal chandelier that probably cost a fortune. Kate, I thought. You might be a genius in the boardroom, but you're an idiot about this. You locked me up because you want me to think about nothing but you, to revolve around you, to satisfy some twisted need for control you have. But I won't play. I'm going to make you feel like you're less important to me than a piece of silicon. Let's see how your ego handles that. Besides a 5090, this whole ordeal was starting to look like a net win. Kate's efficiency was terrifying. The next afternoon, my things started arriving. A team of technicians in sleek, unmarked uniforms silently and expertly assembled the monster PC and the curved ultra-wide monitor. When they turned it on, the screen was so big and bright it almost made me dizzy. The graphics card box sat on the desk, brand new, still in its plastic wrap. I stared at the little box with a mix of emotions. It was probably the most expensive consolation prize I'd ever received. The delivery guys didn't say a word. They finished their work and left, never once making eye contact with the prisoner. The moment the door closed, I was alone again. Me, and a pile of electronics that smelled like money. I unboxed the graphics card and carefully slotted it into the motherboard. I pressed the power button. The case lit up with a rainbow of LEDs, and the fans whirred to life with a gentle hum. Showtime. I sat down, ready to begin my immersive incarceration experience. I just launched a game when the door chimed. Kate walked in. She was wearing a silk, wine-red blouse that made her skin look even paler and her presence even more formidable. She glanced at the computer, now running a game at max settings, then looked at me. Her eyes were searching, and behind them, there was a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Annoyance? Yes, that was it. Annoyance. The calmer I was, the more I enjoyed myself, the more it pissed her off. This was not going according to her. Break him with a cage and make him submit script. Is everything to your satisfaction? She asked, her tone flat. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Satisfied? It's incredible. You're the best, boss. This monitor has amazing color depth. Great response time, too. Thanks. Kate walked up behind me. I could smell a cool, clean perfume, something like cedarwood. She stood there for a moment, just watching me play. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, but I forced myself to stay still. Don't show weakness. Suddenly, she leaned down, planting one hand on the desk, effectively trapping me in the space between her arm and the chair. Her voice was a warm breath next to my ear. Leo, is there nothing else you'd like to say to me? My hand twitched, and my character in the game nearly ran into a wall. Say? Like what? Like, thank you for kidnapping me and buying me a graphics card that costs more than a used car? She let out a soft laugh, and the puff of air tickled my ear. You know what I'm talking about. I want you to beg me. Beg me to let you go, or beg me to get closer. I took a deep breath, forcing my eyes to focus on the screen. Boss, that line is a little cliché, don't you think? I'm actually pretty comfortable right now. Food, shelter, video games. Why would I beg you for anything? A raise? I'm not exactly drawing a salary for this. Kate was silent for a few seconds. Then, her hand shot out and pressed the power button on the PC tower. The screen went black. The world went silent. I turned my head to face her. Her face was inches from mine. Beautiful, yes, but her eyes were terrifying. Kate, my team was just about to clear the final boss. She stared at me, enunciating every word. I am not happy. I went to all this trouble to lock you up, not to watch you play video games. I held up my hands. So what do you want me to do? Watch you. What else? She said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. But I watch my game, you watch me. It doesn't seem very fair, does it? I try to reason. In here, I am to reason. She gripped my chin, her fingers surprisingly strong. Leo, don't make me angry. Her nails were a little long, and they pricked my skin. The posture was intimate, but the atmosphere was anything but. This was a raw threat. I knew I couldn't push her too far. This woman was not playing with a full deck, and there was no telling what she might do. I softened my tone. Okay, boss, you're the reason, but could you maybe let go? If you bruise my chin, it won't be very aesthetically pleasing for you to look at, right? Kate narrowed her eyes, studying me for a moment, before releasing her grip. She stood up straight and smoothed down her perfectly unwrinkled blouse. I'll be here for dinner tonight. And with that, she swept out of the room like a storm. I rubbed my chin, staring at the dead screen, and sighed. This 5090 was coming with some serious strings attached. This woman was harder to please than the most demanding client. At least clients paid you. She seemed to want my soul. Kate was as good as her word. At 6 o'clock sharp, she appeared. She was carrying a huge, tiered food container, the kind from a ridiculously expensive restaurant. She set it on the massive dining table, a table that could easily seat 8, and began unpacking dishes one by one. The plating was exquisite, and the aroma was incredible. I swallowed, my stomach rumbling shamelessly. One of the few perks of being a prisoner, I guess, was the 5-star catering. Sit, eat, she commanded, taking her seat at the head of the table. I sat down obediently, looking at the feast, not sure where to start. Go on. Afraid I poisoned it. Kate picked up her fork and took a bite of fish. I was starving, so I threw caution to the wind and dug in. It was, of course, delicious. Kate ate slowly, spending most of her time watching me. Her gaze was clinical, like a scientist observing a lab rat. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "Why the 5090?" My mouth was full of steak. The graphics card, she clarified. Why that specific one? I managed to swallow. Because it's the best. It's powerful. Because a man has to have a dream. Kate raised an eyebrow. Your dream is a piece of hardware. At this particular stage in my life, yes, I said, taking a sip of water. What else am I going to dream about? You letting me go? A corner of her mouth twitched. In your dreams. Well, there you go, I said, going back to my food. A man's gotta have something to look forward to. Kate didn't say anything else, just watched me. I felt like I was being dissected under her gaze. When the meal was finally over, she put down her utensils and delicately dabbed her lips with a napkin. Starting tomorrow, you'll be working with me. I almost choked on my last bite of food. Work? What do you mean, work? I'm a little tied up at the moment. You're my assistant. Have you forgotten? Kate's tone was completely matter-of-fact. The office location may be a bit unconventional, but the work doesn't stop. In a job description, I had a bad feeling about this. Taste testing your food for poison. She smiled, and for the first time, it seemed to hold a hint of genuine amusement. You'll join my meetings, process documents, give me coffee. Virtually, of course. I got it. She couldn't stand the idea of me just being a trophy in her cage. She had to invade every part of my life to make sure I was aware of her presence every single second of the day, even if it was through a screen. Do I still get paid? I asked the practical question. You do, she said without hesitation. Same salary as before. Oh, okay then. I nodded. Getting paid was better than not being paid. Kate seemed a little disappointed by my easy compliance. She was probably hoping I'd resist, so she'd have an excuse to punish me. But I was learning. Go with the flow. When the enemy advances, retreat. When they tire, harass. I wasn't getting out of here anytime soon, so I might as well make myself comfortable. After dinner, Kate didn't linger. She took a call and left. Before she did, she pointed to a brand new, sleek webcam perched in the corner of the living room. That's for your meetings. Don't get any funny ideas. I stared at the little black lens. It felt like a new, unblinking eye in my prison. Fine. Remote incarceration. It was still incarceration. I powered on the PC, my own reflection staring back at me from the dark screen. Kate Vance, you want to play a game? I'll play. Let's see who breaks first. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a video call from Kate. On my monitor, she was already impeccably dressed, makeup perfect, sitting in her bright, spacious office with a floor-to-ceiling window behind her. And me? My hair looked like a bird's nest. I was in a crumpled t-shirt, and my background was my unmade bed. The contrast was brutal. You have 10 minutes. Shower, get dressed, and be in the study. Her voice, crisp and commanding, came through the speakers. Boss, it's 8 in the morning. My eyes were barely open. The workday starts at 9. As my assistant, you need to be prepared in advance. She tapped the camera on her end. Get moving. The call ended. I swore under my breath and dragged myself out of bed. 10 minutes later, I looked passably human and was sitting in front of the computer in the study. I turned on the video. Kate seemed satisfied. You have 2 meetings this morning. I need you to take the minutes. She shared her screen, displaying a project proposal. I stifled a yawn and opened a new document. The meeting began. In work mode, Kate was a different person, fast-talking, ruthlessly logical, with an aura of command that could silence a room. She tore into her subordinates without mercy. As I typed, I thought to myself, no wonder she's messed up. The pressure must be immense. In the middle of the meeting, she suddenly called on me. Mr. Carter, what are your thoughts on this proposal? I blinked, looking at her on the screen. Her eyes were sharp, challenging. I cleared my throat. I think Mr. Miller's proposal is lacking in preliminary user data. The target demographic is too vague. Launching this directly to market is a huge risk. I'd recommend a small-scale A/B test first. Let the numbers do the talking. The virtual meeting room was silent for a few seconds. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on Kate's lips. Did you hear that, Miller? Do what Mr. Carter said. I want a detailed user analysis and a testing plan on my desk by end of day. Meeting adjourned. The conference call ended, but she kept our private line open. Good instincts. You didn't embarrass me. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I've been doing this for a few years. The basics are still there. What do you want for dinner tonight? She asked abruptly. The change in topic was jarring. Anything is fine. There's a new restaurant downstairs. I'll have something sent up. She made the decision for me and cut the connection. I stare at my desktop, feeling a little dazed. What was that? Good cop, bad cop? Except the bad cop was kidnapping, and the good cop was a 50/90 and a 5-star meal delivery service. This was better compensation than my actual job, minus the whole freedom thing. The afternoon was a blur of documents and more meetings. I was really and truly working just from a physically isolated location. Kate would ping me periodically through the video feed to ask a question or assign a task. She seemed to relish this feeling of remotely controlling my entire day. Near the end of the day, she sent over a file. Take a look at this. I opened it. It was a game design document. It's a project from a small studio our company is thinking of acquiring, Kate's voice explained. Think it has potential? I read through it carefully. The gameplay concept was fresh, but the art style was dated and the monetization strategy was unclear. The idea is solid, but the execution is weak. It needs a major overhaul, I said honestly. If the acquisition price is low, it could be a worthwhile gamble, but the follow-up investment will be significant. There was a moment of silence on her end. My thoughts exactly. I'm putting you in charge of overseeing it. I froze. Me? How am I supposed to do that? Remotely, Kate said. From now on, you're the interim project lead. You report directly to me. Wait, boss, I don't think that's appropriate, I stammered. A prisoner running a project? I say it's appropriate, so it's appropriate. Kate's tone was final. I've sent the files to your email. I want your preliminary optimization strategy tomorrow morning. Great. More work. I slumped back in my chair, staring up at that webcam on the ceiling. Kate, what the hell are you playing at? You lock me up just to make me work for you? Your capitalist heart is even darker than your kidnapper one. My days fell into a strange rhythm. Wake up to Kate's video call. Work. Manage the game project. Sometimes she'd come over for lunch. Other times, she'd just have it sent up. We'd occasionally have dinner together, then she'd leave, and I'd play my games. Aside from being unable to leave the apartment, my life was almost identical to before, just fuller. Kate seemed to have found a new hobby, managing me. She took pleasure in assigning me tasks, criticizing my work, and then offering rewards. When I completed a report ahead of schedule, she'd have a bottle of expensive whiskey delivered. When my suggestions were adopted by the project team, a limited edition action figure would appear at my door. It was like she was playing a management sim, and I was her primary character. The feeling was weird. Tonight, she came over again. She wasn't carrying food, and she looked exhausted. She walked in and immediately collapsed onto the sofa, rubbing her temples. I was in the middle of a raid, headphones on, but I saw her and hesitated before taking them off. What's wrong? Trouble at the office? She didn't open her eyes. Her voice was strained. A bunch of idiots. Can't even handle one simple thing. I wisely kept my mouth shut. Responding now would just make me her punching bag. After a moment, she said, "Come here." I looked at her warily. "What for?" "Give me a head massage," she commanded, her tone as natural as if she were speaking to a butler. Boss, I'm pretty sure that's outside my job description as an assistant." Kate opened her eyes. They were cold. "Leo, don't make me say it again." I dragged my feet over to her. I stood behind the sofa, looking at the cascade of her dark hair and the delicate line of her neck. I wasn't sure where to put my hands. "Hurry up," she urged impatiently. I had no choice but to place my hands on her temples and start rubbing gently. Her skin was cool and smooth. I had no technique. I just pressed and kneaded randomly. She didn't speak, just closed her eyes, her breathing slowly evening out. The only sounds in the room were the faint scent of her perfume and the slightly too fast beating of my own heart. After about 10 minutes, my hands were starting to ache. "Is that good, boss?" No response. It looked like she had fallen asleep. I stopped moving and called her name softly. "Kate." Still nothing. Her breathing was deep and even, her long lashes resting on her cheeks. Without the usual sharp intensity, she looked vulnerable. The thought startled me. I quietly tried to back away, to sneak back to my computer. I'd only taken 2 steps when her voice, thick with sleep, came from behind me. "Where are you going?" I froze. My raid isn't over." She sat up, running a hand through her hair, instantly reverting to her cold, composed self. "Fine, go." I fled as if granted a pardon. But as I sat back down, I couldn't focus. That image of Kate, for just a moment, hadn't seemed so terrifying. She almost seemed, "Stop it. Leo, get a grip. She's the psycho who locked you in her apartment. Don't fall for the act." I forced myself to stare at the screen, but my fingers were clumsy on the keys. Kate sat on the sofa for a while longer, not speaking, not leaving, just sitting there in the quiet. Finally, her phone rang. She answered, her voice instantly shifting back to that of the efficient, powerful CEO. "Speak." "Yes, I understand. I'll handle it immediately." She stood and grabbed her jacket. At the door, she paused without turning around. "How's the graphics card?" I was caught off guard. "Huh? Oh, it's great. Works great. Good." She opened the door and left. I listened to the lock click shut, my mind a jumble. Why did she ask about the graphics card? Was she actually concerned about my well-being? Or just checking on the ROI of her investment? I couldn't figure her out. This woman was more complicated than any final boss. Gaming was simpler. The project was progressing better than I'd expected. The dev team responded well to my suggestions, and after the latest patch, the initial user data showed a small but promising uptick. During a video conference, Kate praised the team and gave me a nod. Our thanks to Mr. Carter, whose contributions were invaluable. After the meeting, Kate spoke to me privately. "I have a networking dinner tonight. You're on your own for food." "Sounds good, boss." She looked at me, a faint smile playing on her lips. "What? So happy to have me gone?" I immediately put on a serious face. "Of course not. Without you, I lose all motivation to work." "Liar," she scoffed and cut the video feed. I made a face at the black screen. Freedom, even if it was just for one night. I ordered a feast from a delivery app, fired up a game, and prepared for an epic night in. Around 10, the door chimed. I was surprised. Kate was back already. The door opened, and it was Kate, but something was wrong. Her face was flushed, she was unsteady on her feet, and the air was thick with the smell of alcohol. She leaned against the doorframe, her eyes unfocused as she tried to find me. "Leo." I took off my headset and went to her. "You're drunk." She didn't answer, just staggered forward and nearly tripped on the edge of the rug. I instinctively reached out and caught her. Her full weight fell against me. She was heavy, a warm mix of expensive perfume and booze. You brought me home," she mumbled, her hot breath on my neck. "You came home by yourself." I struggled to support her as I steered her toward the sofa. "Driver, downstairs." She seemed to be trying to clear her head, to stand on her own, but it was useless. I finally managed to get her to the sofa, where she collapsed onto it, pulling me down with her. I braced myself on the armrest to keep from falling on top of her. The position was awkward. She was lying beneath me, her eyes wide open and glistening. The usual sharpness was gone, replaced by a sort of dazed innocence. Now, she said my name again, her voice soft. Yeah, I tried to straighten up, but she suddenly reached up and looped her arms around my neck. She wasn't strong, but I was off balance, and she easily pulled me down closer. Our faces were inches apart. I could see each of her individual eyelashes, the way her lips were flushed from the alcohol. Her breath, smelling of wine, washed over my face. My heart skipped a beat. My throat was dry. She stared at me, her gaze hazy, as if she were trying to solve a puzzle. Why? Why aren't you scared of me? I blinked. Why would I be scared of you? I locked you up. She whispered, a note of complaint in her voice. I read about it in those dark romance novels. The guy is always supposed to be scared. I almost laughed. What kind of logic was that? Boss, you're drunk. I tried to gently remove her hands, but she only clung tighter. Don't go. She closed her eyes and nuzzled her head against my chest like a cat finding a warm spot. It's cold. I was frozen, unsure of what to do. What was this? A drunken confession? Or some new, twisted form of psychological torture? Kate seemed to have actually fallen asleep. Her breathing evened out and her grip on my neck loosened. I carefully sat up, arranged her more comfortably on the sofa, and covered her with a blanket. She curled up into a ball, looking small and utterly devoid of her usual tyrannical presence. I crouched by the sofa and watched her for a long time. My mind was a mess. Kate, who are you really? Are you the cold, ruthless CEO who locked me up without a second thought? Or are you this woman who gets drunk and complains about being cold and seems almost fragile? Or are they both you? I sighed and got up to get her a glass of water. I just reached the kitchen when I heard a soft thud from the living room. I rushed back to find Kate had rolled off the sofa. She was sitting on the rug, holding her head, looking both pained and confused. She saw me and blinked. Leo? How'd I get here? Great. She was half sober. You were drunk. Your driver brought you home, I said, handing her the water. She took a sip, and rubbed her forehead. Her eyes gradually cleared. Then she saw the blanket that was now pooled on the floor, and she looked from it to me. Her expression shifted. I didn't say anything stupid, did I? Nope, I said, my face a perfect mask of innocence. You just threw up all over me. I had to change my shirt. Kate froze, instinctively sniffing her own clothes. Just kidding, I grinned. She shot me a glare, but the tips of her ears were turning pink. She scrambled to her feet, a little too quickly, and swayed. I reached out to steady her. She slapped my hand away. I'm fine. Her voice was back to its usual sharp, defensive tone. She grabbed her purse and marched to the door. Be ready for work on time tomorrow. The door slammed shut. I stood in the empty room, rubbing my nose. Well, she sobers up fast. The second she's lucid, the thorns come back out. But that moment of softness, was it real? I looked down at the indentation on the sofa where she'd been sleeping. The confusion in my chest was getting worse. The next morning, the video call connected right on schedule. Kate was back to being an ice queen, as if the woman who had been sitting dazed on my floor last night was a figment of my imagination. Forget about what happened last night, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. I played dumb. Last night? What happened? You mean that round of gaming where you kept dying and blamed it on lag? She stared at me through the camera, tried to find a crack in my poker face. I just looked back, all innocence. That's for the best, she said, looking away. Now, for today's agenda. First, we'll review the new report for marketing. Then there's a video conference at 10. Everything was back to normal. She didn't come over that evening, but she sent me a 3-word text, working late. I didn't reply. I stared at that dark webcam for a long time before finally turning back to my game. But it wasn't as fun anymore. The graphics card was amazing, the game was top tier, but something felt missing. Oh crap, this isn't Stockholm Syndrome, is it? I shook my head, trying to banish the terrifying thought. A few nights later, I was already asleep when my phone buzzed. It was a new phone Kate had provided, fully functional, but only able to contact her and her inner circle. I answered. It was her assistant, Jenna, and she sounded frantic. Mr. Carter? I'm so sorry to bother you this late, but Ms. Vance. What's wrong with her? Her stomach condition is acting up again. She's in a lot of pain, the medicine isn't working, and she refuses to go to the hospital. I'm outside her apartment, but she won't open the door. I shot up in bed. Send me the address. Jenna hesitated. But sir, you can't. Don't argue with me. Send me the address, then go buy some heating pads and a simple soup or something. I was pulling on clothes as I spoke. I have a way to make her open the door. As soon as I got the address, I started a video call with Kate. It rang for a long time before she answered. On the screen, her face was pale, her forehead beaded with sweat. She was curled up in bed, looking impossibly fragile. Leo, her voice was shaking. Open the door. Let Jenna in, I said, my voice hard. If you don't, I'm jumping out of this window right now. I swear to God I'll do it. Kate's eyes widened. You open the door. I repeated, my voice louder. She stared at me for a few seconds, then whispered weakly toward her front door. Jenna, you can come in. I heard the sound of the door opening, and Jenna's sigh of relief. Okay, it's open, Kate said into the phone. Don't do anything stupid. Good, I said, my tone softening. Let Jenna take care of you. Take your medicine, drink some soup. I know. Hang up. Get some rest. The video cut out. I was still holding the phone, my palms slick with sweat. For a second there, I was genuinely afraid she'd call my bluff. That woman was stubborn enough to hurt herself just to prove a point. The next morning, I logged on with dark circles under my eyes. Kate was already in her office. Her complexion was still poor, but it was mostly hidden under makeup. She looked at me through the camera and said nothing. I said nothing back. After a moment, she spoke, her voice low. Thank you. Don't mention it, boss. It's an employee's duty to be concerned about the health and well-being of their employer. My tone was strictly professional. She pursed her lips. The window. You're forbidden from going near it. Depends on your behavior, I said, picking up the day's schedule. Boss, you're going to be late for your meeting. She glared at me, but didn't argue. As the meeting started, I noticed a thermos on her desk. She took a sip from it every now and then. I got a text from Jenna. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Ms. Vance is doing much better. I texted back a simple good. Watching the woman on the screen, forcing herself to be strong, I felt a strange pang in my chest. The project entered its critical testing phase, and we were all swamped. Kate and I were on a video call almost constantly, coordinating with the team and troubleshooting issues. One night, we were in another emergency meeting. A game-breaking bug had been discovered right before launch, and the mood was tense. Kate's expression grew darker by the second. If this isn't fixed by noon tomorrow, the launch is delayed, and everyone involved can submit their resignations, she said, her voice cold enough to freeze water. The virtual room was dead silent. I rubbed my temples and spoke up. Give me access. I'll remote in and take a look at the code. Kate looked at me. You? Worth a shot, right? Nothing to lose. I shrugged. I used to do this for a living. She didn't ask any more questions. She just said to the tech lead, give him access. I worked for hours, my eyes burning from staring at lines of code. Kate stayed on the line the entire time, a silent presence on the other end. I could occasionally hear the soft click of her keyboard or the sound of her sipping water. Sometime after midnight, I finally found it. The bug was fixed. I let out a huge breath and collapsed back in my chair. It's done. They can start testing. Good work. Kate's voice came through, tired but relieved. All in a day's work for the boss, I said, rubbing my eyes. Are you hungry? I can have something sent up. Is barbecue an option? It's the middle of the night. Let's get something lighter. What arrived was a seafood risotto, some pastries, and a can of ice-cold beer. I ate the risotto while watching Kate on the screen as she confirmed the fix with the testing team. Aren't you eating, boss? In a minute, she said without looking up. By the time everything was confirmed, it was 4 a.m. She finally leaned back in her chair and stretched her neck. It's done, she said, looking at the camera. Her face was tired but relaxed. Yep, it's done, I said. I held up my beer can. A toast. She smiled faintly and raised her thermos of water in a mock toast. You did well, Leo. Of course I did. You wouldn't have gone to all this trouble to lock me up if I didn't, right? She raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. The usual sharpness in her eyes was gone. In the quiet of the early morning, separated by a screen, the two of us, one drinking beer, the other water, shared a moment that felt surprisingly peaceful. The sun's coming up, she said. Take the morning off. We'll start again this afternoon. Thank you for your benevolence, your majesty. Wise ass, she said, but she was smiling. Good night, she added, just before cutting the connection. I stared at the dark screen and took a sip of beer. Not bad. The bug was fixed, the project launched smoothly, and the initial numbers were good. Kate was in a noticeably better mood. On Friday evening, she came over carrying a cake box. To celebrate a successful launch, she said, placing it on the table. I looked at the fancy chocolate cake. Is this what you call a team-building event, boss? It is, she said, getting out 2 plates. A team of 2. We sat and ate the cake. Her manners were, as always, impeccable. Starting Monday, you can leave, she said suddenly. My fork froze midair. What? I said, you can leave, she repeated, looking at me. Your confinement is over. I just stared at her, my mind blank. She was just letting me go. Of course, she added. Your duties as my assistant continue. You'll just be working from the office instead of here. I couldn't identify the feeling in my chest. Shock, maybe, but also a strange emptiness. Why? I asked. Kate scraped a bit of chocolate frosting with her fork. I'm bored. Bored of locking me up? She glanced up at me. What? Are you going to miss it? No way. I denied it instantly. I couldn't be happier. She gave a slight, humorless smile and didn't say anything else. We finished the cake in a slightly awkward silence. She stood up. I'm leaving. Report to the office on Monday. At the door, she paused without turning back. The graphics card and the computer are yours to keep. And she opened the door and left. I sat on the sofa, staring at the empty cake plate. That's it. It's just over. Freedom, my job back, and a free top-of-the-line gaming rig. By all accounts, I'd hit the jackpot. So why did I feel so miserable? What the hell was wrong with that woman? On Monday, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I walked out of that apartment building. The sunlight was blinding. The air, it smelled like freedom. I caught a cab to the office. The receptionist looked surprised to see me, but let me through with a polite nod. Nothing in the office had changed. My coworkers gave me curious looks, but no one asked any questions. It was as if I'd just come back from a long vacation. My desk was just as I'd left it. I sat down, turned on my computer, logged in. Business as usual. Kate was in meetings all morning. At lunch in the cafeteria, some guys from the project team clapped me on the back and said we all had to go out for drinks to celebrate the launch. I smiled and agreed. Everything was back to normal, and it felt completely wrong. In the afternoon, Kate finally returned to her office. A moment later, my desk phone rang, summoning me. I walked into her cavernous office. She was sitting behind her massive desk, signing documents, and didn't look up. You're back. Yeah. Get caught up on your work. Clear out the backlog that's piled up. Okay. She finished signing the last document and finally looked at me. Her expression was neutral, professional. She looked at me the same way she looked at every other employee. You can go. Yes, Ms. Vance. I turned and closed the door behind me. A hot wave of anger washed over me. Bored? Was that it? She locks me up for nearly a month, puts me through the emotional ringer, and now it's all over because she's bored? Leo, what is wrong with you? She set you free. You should be celebrating. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. No, I wasn't going to let it end like this. That night, the project team went out to a fancy restaurant. When I arrived, most people were already there. Kate was in the center of a group, holding a glass of wine. She saw me, gave me a brief, polite nod, and turned back to her conversation. The dinner was loud and cheerful. People kept toasting Kate, thanking her for her leadership. I went up with the rest of them. To Ms. Vance, I said, raising my glass. Thank you for your investment in my development. Kate met my eyes, took a sip of her wine. You earned it. Distant. Professional. I sat back down, the knot in my stomach tightening. Halfway through the dinner, I went to the restroom. On my way back, I saw Kate standing alone by a window in the corridor, looking out at the city lights. I walked over. She heard my footsteps and turned. Her expression flickered when she saw it was me. Enjoying the view, Ms. Vance. Getting some air, she said, turning back to the window. I stood next to her. We were both silent for a moment. Why did you let me go? I finally asked. I told you. I was bored. I don't believe you. Kate let out a short, self-deprecating laugh. What do you think the reason is, then? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. She turned to face me. The light in the hallway was dim, and I couldn't quite read her eyes. Leo, you're free. Isn't that a good thing? It is, I nodded, but I want to know why. She stared at me for a few long seconds, then took a step closer. Because I realized that locking you up was pointless. You were still you. You weren't afraid of me, and you weren't going to. So what did you want from me? I asked, my voice low. For me to be scared? Or? I don't know. She cut me off, a hint of frustration in her voice. And that's why I got bored. She turned to leave. I grabbed her wrist. Her body went rigid. She looked back at me. Let go. No. I looked her straight in the eye. Kate, this isn't a game you can start and stop whenever you feel like it. Her expression wavered. What do you want? You held me captive for almost a month. What about my compensation for emotional distress? She blinked, clearly not expecting that. Didn't you get the computer? That's hardware. This is about emotional damages. What do you want? I looked at her and said, slowly and clearly, from now on, I'm the one chasing you. Kate just stared at me, her eyes wide, as if I'd just started speaking another language. What did you just say? I said. I leaned in closer until I could smell that familiar, cool perfume. I'm going to pursue you, Kate. Are you insane? She tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tighter. Probably, I grinned. You drove me insane. A faint blush crept up her cheeks. Her eyes darted away. That's ridiculous. Let go of me. Not until you give me an answer. This is absurd. She finally yanked her hand free and hurried back toward the private dining room. But just before she turned the corner, I could have sworn I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile. I leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. This was probably a terrible idea, but it felt right. Every morning, I showed up at her office with a different kind of coffee. Ms. Vance, your latte. No sugar. She wouldn't even look up. Just put it on the desk. At noon, I would happen to be in the cafeteria at the same time as her, and would coincidentally sit at her table. Fancy seeing you here, Ms. Vance. She threw me a look. It's a small cafeteria. After work, I would by chance end up in the same elevator. Going home, Ms. Vance. Yes. Me too. We're going the same way. She finally snapped. Leo, we live in opposite directions. Right. So I'll drop you off, then I'll go home. See? It's on the way. Kate was speechless. The office gossip started to spread. People were saying that Leo Carter was trying to date the CEO, and that the CEO hadn't exactly said no. One day, I walked into the office carrying a massive bouquet of red roses. The entire open-plan office fell silent. I knocked on her door and went in. Kate was reading a report. She looked up, saw me and the roses, and frowned. What are you doing? Delivering flowers. I placed a bouquet on her desk. Do you like them? She put down her pen and rubbed her temples. Leo, can you please just act normal? I'm being normal, I said innocently. Isn't it normal to give flowers to someone you're interested in? She was flustered, the tips of her ears turning red. Get out. I'll get out as soon as you accept the flowers. She glared at me. I just smiled back. After a few seconds of a silent standoff, she broke. She waved a hand dismissively. Take them with you. Can't do that. They represent my feelings. Do whatever you want. She looked back down at her report, but I could see her ears were now a shade of crimson. I left her office with a grin. Step 1 of pursuit. Be completely shameless. That weekend, I drove to her apartment building and called her. What? She answered, her tone grumpy. Come downstairs. I'm taking you out. I'm busy. If you don't come down, I'm going to start shouting your name. Leo Carter, you wouldn't dare. I'm counting to 3. 1, 2. She hung up. A few minutes later, she appeared downstairs, fuming. She was in sweatpants and a hoodie, no makeup, her hair thrown up in a messy bun. What do you want? She hissed. A date. I opened the passenger door. Get in. I'm not going. Then I'm really going to shout. Kate. Shut up. She clapped a hand over my mouth, glanced around nervously, then dove into the car. Seatbelt, I said, starting the engine with a smile. Where are we going? She asked, still annoyed. An amusement park. Kate gave me a look that clearly said, Are you having a stroke? I'm going to an amusement park dressed like this. You look great, I said, glancing over at her. Cute, actually. She choked on a reply and turned to stare out the window. At the park, I bought 2 tickets and dragged her inside. She was reluctant at first, her arms crossed, her face a mask of displeasure. But after we rode a roller coaster and I snapped a picture of her screaming, Her expression a mix of terror and exhilaration. She started to thaw. Delete that. No way. It's adorable. Now. She chased me, trying to grab my phone, and I ran ahead, laughing. The sun was bright, and without her corporate armor, she looked younger, more carefree. Her angry pout was surprisingly charming. We went on a few more rides, ate ice cream, and watched a parade. As dusk fell, we sat in a Ferris wheel car, watching the park light up below us. Kate was quiet, just gazing out the window. I haven't been here in a long time, she said suddenly. You came here as a kid? Yeah, with my dad. Her voice was soft. Then he got busy. He never had time for me after that. I didn't say anything. It didn't feel like the right moment. The Ferris wheel reached its highest point. I looked at her profile, illuminated by the glittering lights of the park. Kate. She turned to look at me. I leaned in and gently kissed her on the forehead. It was quick. She froze, her eyes wide, just looking at me. She didn't get angry. She didn't pull away. But the tips of her ears turned a deep, telltale red. The Ferris wheel started its descent. Neither of us spoke. The air was thick with a new, gentle intimacy. After we got off, we walked toward the parking lot. Her hand brushed against mine. Once. Twice. The third time, I reached out and took it. Her fingers flinched, but she didn't pull away. Her hand was a little cold. I squeezed it gently. She kept her head down, but she let me hold her hand all the way to the car. I only let go to open her door for her. She got in, buckled her seatbelt, and continued to stare out the window. I started the car and put on some quiet music. While waiting at a red light, I glanced over at her. She seemed to have fallen asleep, her head resting against the window. But I knew she was awake. Her eyelashes were trembling slightly. I parked in front of her building. She didn't move. We're here, I said softly. She opened her eyes slowly. Okay. But she made no move to get out. We sat in silence for another minute. Thank you. For today, she whispered. You're welcome, I smiled. I'll take you somewhere else next time. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. I should go up, she said, finally reaching for the door handle. Kate, I called out. She paused. I'm serious about this. Her shoulders tensed slightly. After a few seconds, she said, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I know. Then she got out and walked into her building without looking back. I watched until she was gone before driving away. I was feeling pretty good. When I got back to my own small apartment, the place felt empty. I actually missed the sterile luxury of my gilded cage. Damn, you get used to the good life fast. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Kate. 2 words, home. I smiled. Just got in. You still up? Going to bed. Good night. Night. I fell back on my bed, staring at that last text. The long shot campaign was starting to show signs of progress. One afternoon, I went to her office to drop off a file. She was on the phone, and her voice was uncharacteristically gentle. Yes, okay, I know. Don't worry. I'll take care of myself. Mom, I know. I promise I'll be there for dinner on Sunday. Okay, I love you too, bye. She hung up and rubbed her temples, looking tired. Ms. Vance, I said. She looked up. What is it? Are you free this weekend? I asked. My parents want to meet you. Kate started coughing violently, her face turning red. What? What did you just say? My parents. I repeated calmly. They want to meet you. Leo, we're not. We haven't even. Haven't what? I walked closer and leaned against her desk. I've kissed you. I've held your hand. What's wrong with meeting my parents? Kate shot to her feet, flustered and angry, her face bright red. That didn't count. That was, you ambushed me. Oh, I said. So what does count? This. I leaned down and kissed her on the lips. It lasted only a second. Kate was completely petrified, her eyes wide, one hand flying up to cover her mouth. Does that one count? I asked with a grin. Leo Carter. She finally came back to life and grabbed a folder from her desk to hit me with. I dodged it, laughing. I'll pick you up on Saturday. Or something nice. My mom likes the classy type. I bolted out her office just as something heavy slammed against the door from the inside. I leaned against the wall, laughing. God, it was fun to tease her. Epilogue. The CEO's secret donation one Saturday afternoon. I was holed up in the study, live streaming a gaming session. It was an employee perk Kate had approved. As long as my work was done, I could stream for a couple of hours a week. The camera was aimed only at my hands and keyboard. All right, guys, how sick was that last play? Let's see those donations. I was on a roll. Suddenly, a series of flashy animations exploded across my screen. A user with the ID Vixen had just dropped 10 supernova GIFs, the most expensive one available. The chat went insane. Whoa, whale alert. Someone's a big fan. I paused. That ID seemed familiar. I clear my throat. Wow. Thanks to Vixen for the supernovas. But hey, let's be responsible with our spending, okay? I heard a faint, smug little laugh through my headset. My head whipped around. The study door was cracked open. Kate was leaning against the frame, arms crossed, a ghost of a smile on her lips. After the stream ended, I took off my headset. Inspecting the troops, Ms. Vance. She walked in, her expression back to its usual cool neutrality. Just passing by. Oh, I dragged out the word. So, I guess Vixen was just passing by with her credit card, too? Kate's ears turned pink, but she held her ground. The company believes in supporting its employees' side hustles. I held back a laugh and pulled her onto my lap. Supporting them with your personal bank account. She looked away. I felt like it. Boss, I whispered, my lips close to her ear. Do you have any idea how much you just spent? She nudged me lightly. Don't get a big head. Still, I said, wrapping my arms around her waist. Thanks for the donation. Kate turned to look at me, her eyes shining. How are you going to thank me? I kissed her. Like that. Not enough. Then, I'll make you that perfect steak dinner tonight. A genuine, happy smile finally broke through her composed facade. Now you're talking. Watching her, looking so pleased with herself, I had to laugh. The great, powerful, untouchable CEO, underneath it all, she was just a kid who wanted to be spoiled. It just so happened her idea of spoiling cost a fortune. End.